Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good morning and namaste, everybody. And happy Mother's Day. Yesterday I was at Princeton giving a talk, and the devotees there who organized the talk took me to an Indian restaurant, and everything was overcrowded. And then suddenly we realized it's going to be Mother's Day, that's why. And we have a big treat for you this Mother's Day. If you look at the treat, it's called nothing, the void, Śūnyam. But I assure you, it's far from nothing. We have had 2 birthdays consecutively. Recently we had Bhagavan Buddha's birthday. And then before that we had Adi Shankaracharya's birthday. So it struck me that we can have these 2 talks like a pair. One on emptiness today, Śūnyam, and one on fullness next Sunday, Purnam. And we'll see where that takes us. But today's journey is a journey into nothingness. And why I selected this subject, a little background is important. Generally on the occasion of Bhagavan Buddha's birthday, we talk about the life of Bhagavan Buddha, the core teachings, 4 Noble Truths. But I thought every year the 4 Noble Truths, let's do something a little different this time. Let's go a little deeper into Buddhism and Buddhist philosophy. The reason, someone might ask, why are you doing this? It's important to clarify the background to this. Why are you doing this and on what basis, on what authority? You're not a Buddhist. 3 reasons I can think of. One is, so the question is, why are we having this talk on emptiness? So 3 reasons I can think of. One is, of course, in our tradition, the great reverence and respect that Bhagavan Buddha is held in. Swami Vivekananda speaks about Buddha in glowing terms. So many things. For example, the sanest man who ever lived, no cobwebs in that brain. And many other things. So that's one. Our tradition has a deep reverence for the Buddha and the Buddha's teachings. The second one is more personal. Many years ago, 20 years ago, about 25 years ago, I came across these teachings on emptiness. When I was a novice monk in Belur Math, in training, in the library I came across this book, The Central Philosophy of Buddhism by Professor T.R.V. Murthy. And I was fascinated. I had never heard of Nagarjuna. Heard of emptiness, but I thought it was something like nothingness. So that fascinated me. And then I found this book, Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamaka Karika, the foundational text of this philosophy of emptiness, let's say. And I was hooked. And I have been hooked ever since. So the last 25 years or more. So that's the second reason. I've been reading about it. See, I'm not a Buddhist. I've also not been initiated or trained in a traditional lineage of Buddhist teachers. However, I've been studying about it a lot over many years. And the third reason is that I actually got some formal training, academic training, no doubt, but some formal training at the Harvard Divinity School. And it's very interesting that entirely coincidentally, without any planning, we have Professor Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak right here in our midst. People looking are in the middle, not in the middle. She's right here in the front. So thank you, Gayatri. So I'll tell you what is her connection with this. She has a long association with the Vedanta Society and the Ramakrishna Mission. But her specific connection with today's talk, and completely unplanned, it is this, that when the proposal came they will have Hindu monks at Harvard University. So I asked Gayatri, should I go to school at this age, again back to school? And she laughed and said, this age, you're a kid compared to me. Look at me, I'm studying at this age. Why won't you study? You go. And then she was kind enough to write a recommendation to me. I don't know what she wrote. It's confidential, so they never showed it to me. But she wrote a recommendation for me. When I went at Harvard, when I asked Professor Clooney, how did you select me? He said, the kind of recommendation that you had, there's no other way. We could not have not selected you. And he went on to say, the recommendation letter that Professor Spivak wrote for you, it's not every day that one gets, I'm quoting Professor Clooney, his words, it's not every day that one gets a letter from Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, so that letter has gone into the archives at Harvard University. So how is this connected with today's talk? So when I went to the Harvard Divinity School, there were these two courses which I took and which I enjoyed immensely. One was, to my surprise and delight, I found that Professor J. Garfield was offering a course on Madhyamaka Buddhism. Those are the guys who are specialists on emptiness. Tibetan Buddhism, Indo-Tibetan Madhyamaka. And now I had heard of Professor Garfield. I'd never seen him. I had read a little bit of his published work. And so I asked, would you take me in? Because everybody else in the course was a PhD either in Tibetan or in Buddhist philosophy. They were all graduate students working for another PhD maybe. So I was none of those things. And Professor Garfield was very kind enough to say that, don't worry, Swami, there's always a spot for you. So that was very enjoyable, very tough also. The very first day, when the first class I attended, I thought I'm in the wrong place. I don't get half of what people are saying. Then I began to see that I understood what the professor was saying, not so much what the students were saying. Then I understood a little later that the students are expected to be smart and say smart things. You don't have to be very attentive to what the other students are saying. As long as you understand what the professor is teaching, you're okay. So that was a very useful course for me. And a lot of what I'm going to say is based upon what Professor Garfield introduced us to. And the second course which I took was at the Harvard Philosophy Department. Professor Parimal Patil taught an excellent course on Buddhist philosophy, classical Buddhist philosophy in India. So all the Buddhist philosophy which was done in India for 1,000 years, until about 1080. So that compressed into one course. And it was fascinating for me in another way. There I was sitting in Professor Garfield's class. He is famous for giving very dense reading. So every week we had to read 300 or 400 pages of books, handouts, and stuff like that. And it's not just ordinary stuff. It's more than 2,000 years of work. The original works of Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti and Dharmakirti and others, then they were, which were in Sanskrit, difficult philosophical Sanskrit. Then they were transmitted to Tibet around the end of the first millennium and translated into Tibetan. And then the Tibetans took it up and did a lot of work, which often we, in Vedanta, we don't know. So the work which was done in Tibetan, and all this ancient Sanskrit work and medieval Tibetan work, all translated into almost incomprehensible academic English at Harvard University, from Nalanda to the snowy plateaus of Tibet to Harvard University. What a journey. That's fascinating, really. And my task today is to compress that more than 2,000 years into less than 1 hour. So that's another reason why the basis of what I'm going to say today. Why am I saying this, and on what authority? On that much authority. And I must mention a special book which a Tibetan Buddhist scholar and practitioner, Holchek, he recommended to me. I said that I've been studying this for years, more than 20, 25 years, and I really don't think I've got a clear grasp on emptiness. So he recommended a book. He said, there's this rare book, it's not very well known. It's called Progressive Stages of Meditation on Emptiness. I'll repeat that. If you're interested, it's worth reading. It's very, very short. You can't go through it easily. It's short but dense, but very well written and lucidly and practical. What do you do with these concepts in your day-to-day life, in spiritual life? So, Progressive Stages of Meditation on Emptiness by a Lama. His name is Sultrim Gyatso Rinpoche. So he has, what that book did for me was, it brought all that I had studied. It brought it all together and gave me insight, a clarity. It gave me the big picture of what was going on. So what I'm going to say today on emptiness is based a great deal on that particular book also, that one particular volume. All right, I can't postpone it anymore. Let's take our journey into into nothingness. So, what I'm going to say about nothingness, Śūnyatā, the title of the talk is Sunyam, just to match the Purnam of the next talk. But a more common way is not nothing, but nothingness or voidness. So, Śūnyatā is the term often used. In ancient Sanskrit text, Buddhist texts also. So I'll be talking about emptiness, not nothingness, emptiness, or the void. And what I'm going to say is very naturally from the perspective of Tibetan Buddhist philosophy. And that's important, because if you're trained in Theravada, you might not agree with what I'm saying. Or in some other Mahayana school, you might not agree with what I'm saying. This is a particular view. This is a view from the Tibetan Buddhist philosophical perspective. All right. Now what Rinpoche has done, this Sultrim Gyatso Rinpoche, he says, one way of understanding emptiness, Śūnyatā, is to see it as a progressively deepening of this understanding, this concept of Śūnyatā. We start with the Theravada understanding. He calls it the Shravaka understanding or Shravakayana understanding. Now this may seem like belittling the other schools. But remember, at every stage, none of the insights of the earlier stages are done away with. The Tibetan Buddhist claim is we are just deepening the earlier insights. We are not saying they are wrong. So with that in mind. So the first understanding of Sunyam, empty. It literally means no self. It's just, at least on paper, it's just the opposite of the Hindu view of Atma, the ultimate reality that we are not the body, not the mind, we are this immortal self. And the emptiness of what? Emptiness of self. Emptiness of, in Sanskrit, the swabhava, that a thing has an essence. And that was what the Buddhists, all the schools, all of them, whether the Theravada, or the Mahayana schools, or the Vajrayana schools, Tibetan Buddhists, they all attack this idea that things have an essence of their own, which is a very typically Hindu idea. So the first thing they say is that there is no self. We'll take up the Theravada idea first, stage 1, and we'll see how to meditate upon it and what benefit does it give. Then next stage, stage 2. There are 5 stages in all, in our understanding, in the journey. Stage 2 will be what is called the mind-only school. It's a Mahayana school called the Chittamatra, Vijnanavada, Yogachara, multiple names are there. So mind-only school, we're not going to talk about the school as such. We're going to talk about its understanding of emptiness, Śūnyatā. Second stage. Third stage, there is the Madhyamaka school, the so-called middle path school of Nagarjuna and his followers. They are the emptiness specialists. So we're going to talk about the Madhyamaka understanding of emptiness. And there are 2 varieties of Madhyamaka. I'll come to that. One is called Swatantrika and another one is called Prasangika. We'll just touch upon that. The distinctions are very technical and not particularly useful for us in this context. But still, I'll touch upon that. So now we have got 4. Shravaka understanding, then the Chitta Matra, mind only, Madhyamaka Swatantrika, Madhyamaka Prasangika. What it means we'll see. And finally, there's something called the Shentong school, not at all well discussed even in Tibetan Buddhist circles. That's the final understanding we'll come to. Now, before I jump into this analysis of no self, I was just thinking, the whole talk can be seen as a commentary on a teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. There's a little book which I love, Sri Ramakrishna Upadesh, the teachings of the master, or it's translated in English as the words of the master. And there, it's compiled by Swami Brahmananda. And there, the first teaching, the very first one, of someone who was a devotee of Kali, considered himself a child of the mother, Mother's Day, the child of the mother. There, the first teaching is, if you analyze this, who am I? It's not about mother, it's not about God. It says, if you analyze who am I, if you recognize who you are, you find God. Manush nije ke chinte parle Bhagavan ke paye, Bhagavan ke chinte pare. If a person realizes who he or she is, really what we are, you find God. And then he goes on to say that if you analyze what I am, what you are, you will soon find there is nothing corresponding to that. Ami ke bhalo bhabe bhebe dekle kono shar pawa jay na. You don't find any essence, self-nature, swabhava. Very Buddhistic. The very first teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. And then he goes on to say that nothing corresponds to this concept of I. And then he adds, Sheshe ja thake tai. Chaitanya, consciousness, pure consciousness. And there it stops. That becomes more Hindu then again. But the first teaching sounds extremely Buddhistic. And you will see the whole talk today is like a commentary on these few lines. The first teaching of Sri Ramakrishna in that book, Sri Ramakrishna Upadesh. So just we'll shelve that for the time being. Now back to the first stage, the Shravaka understanding. We will see what the core idea is, and how do you meditate upon it, and what benefit do you get out of it. And we will use the dream example. These are complicated and subtle subjects, so if we want to have, keep our footing, just keep in mind the dream example. By dream example, I mean just our dreams. We will use that at each stage. Gyaltso Rinpoche has actually done that. At each stage, he has explained these subtle concepts and then used the dream as an example to explain what's going on here. So we will use dreams as an example for understanding at each of the 5 stages. All right. Stage 1. You're looking at Swami. Start. You haven't started yet. So stage 1 is the Shravaka or Theravada understanding of emptiness, and that is no self. What do they mean by no self? How can there be no self? They say that examine what you mean by the self, Atma, self. Who am I or what am I? And when we examine this, when we analyze this in our own experience, you will find these 5 things. The famous Buddhist 5 aggregates, Panchaskandha. Literally means, it's often translated as 5 heaps. Literally, the skandha would mean a pillar, actually. So the 5 pillars or the 5 heaps or the 5 aggregates. What are these? In our own experience, when we look at our own experience, at ourselves, if you are asked, analyze yourself, see what's there, we will find first the body. In Buddhist terminology, this is called the Rupa Skandha. Rupa Skandha. Rupa Skandha is the material aspect of our existence. Any material entity is Rupa Skandha, but right now we're talking about ourselves. So the body is Rupa Skandha. Rupa literally means form. Then we will find within this form, in our own experience, what they call Vedana Skandha. That means feelings. At the very minimum, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, mixed feelings. Right now our experience of how our state, our emotional state, physical state, perceptual state, is it nice? Is it not nice? Or is it a mixture? Vedana Skandha. Then third is Sangya Skandha. Sangya Skandha is perceptual, the perceptual pillar or perceptual aggregate. We see, and we hear, and we smell, and we taste, and we touch, and we think also. All of that is Sangya. Mind is also included as a sixth sense, literally, in this way of thinking. Then the fourth one, which we find, is what is called samskara skandha. I'm giving the Sanskrit terms. There are the Pali terms also, sankhara, skandha, and so on. Samskara means the mental predispositions, literally the way we understand it in Vedanta also. Our past impressions, our mental disposition. We are not the same. All of us have mental makeup, personality. So samskara skandha. And then finally, awareness, consciousness. We are all aware. We are having experiences now. What bothers David Chalmers so much in NYU now, the hard problem of consciousness. And yes, that's another aspect we find in all of us. We are all aware. So vijnana skandha. Rupa skandha, form, body. Then the Vedana skandha, feelings inside, pleasant, unpleasant, mixed. Then there is the Sangya skandha, sensory perceptions, whole set of them, including mental. Then mental predispositions, our unconscious in our more modern terms. But the impressions we carry, our personality type, all of that. And then it includes volition also, for example. And then just awareness. All of this is also lit up by awareness now. This is the bundle which we find upon examining ourselves. Right now, you'll find this. It's a very good analysis. And if you're thinking, this sounds a lot like the Advaitic Panchakosha. The Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, then the Anandamaya. Yes, it does. It's pretty similar. It's a different kind of breakup. You have sliced it differently, but more or less similar. The point being, none of this is the self. All of these are in flux. You think of self as, I am this one who is continuous. But the body is changing from birth to babyhood to childhood to teenage to middle age to old, continuously changing mass of matter. Feelings are continuously changing. They cannot literally, see, this particular body, if that is who I am, then which one? Because the baby's body and the old person's body are not the same at all. Literally not the same. The constituents also have changed. It's a stream of matter. Then which one are you? Because you say, I am the same. Not only you say, common sense says, I was the baby, I was that young person. Law also says that. By law, you are the same person. You cannot say that I have changed. I read a lot of Buddhism, so the guy who committed the crime was different, and I am a different entity. You cannot catch me and put... No, the law will say you are the same person. So then, which is this same person? Which is this continuing Atma here? Nowhere. I will not go into it. They have a very intricate, careful analysis of the 5 heaps, the 5 skandhas, to show none of them can be you, the self. And we say, oh, no, what we mean as Hindus, separate from these 5 skandhas, separate from the 5 koshas, we have a separate Atman. That's what we mean. And the Buddhist will say, stick to facts, Mr. Hindu. Where is this separate? Where is the evidence of anything separate? You must have some evidence, some experience. So all of these are continuously changing, streams. Body is the name of a stream of matter. The mind is the name of a stream of thoughts and emotions and perceptions. Where is this continuous self? No self. Use the dream example to understand this. In the dream example, what happens? I've fallen asleep. I don't know that I've fallen asleep. A dream world appears before me. And I am there. You are there in your own dreams. So you may be walking along in the park and you see a beautiful flower. But this person who is walking along and having lots of experiences, you, the person in your own dream, when you wake up, you know that that person was not there. Neither that person's body was there. There was no self. You, the self, was not there in that person. It was just imagined in the mind. That dream person means you in your own dreams, had no personhood there. It was an appearance. Similarly, they are saying, these Theravada Buddhists, that because of this conglomeration of the 5 heaps, the Panchaskandha, you get an illusion of a self. You take a flashlight and whirl it around. You'll look like a circle. There's no circle. There's only one beam of light being whirled around. This is the famous example of Alata Chakra, a firebrand which is whirled around and gives an illusion of a circle. Similarly, continuous experience is being generated by these 5 skandhas, 5 pillars. You get an illusion of a permanent self or Atman. There is no such thing. If you examine it, nisvabhava, there is no essence to these 5 skandhas, the 5 pillars. And this is the meaning of no self. And this is what emptiness means. Stage 1. How do you meditate? They will say that you relax and sit quietly and gather inwards. Then they have their format. You first take refuge. Buddham sharanam gacchami, sangham sharanam gacchami, dhammam sharanam gacchami. Then awaken what is called a compassionate mind, mind of wisdom and compassion. Tibetan Buddhists call it bodhicitta. And then you notice that there is no self here. Right now, in this, just like the dream, we all agree, the dream person was not the self. There was no self there. A person appeared, but that person has no self. It was an imagination. You are not the dream person, actually. Similarly, these 5 skandhas here, they get together, produce an illusion. I feel I am here. No, you are not. Then what am I? Don't inquire any further. You do not find anything corresponding to I, just like Sri Ramakrishna said. There is no essence corresponding to the concept I, the construct I. What good does that do? When you stay with it, you will see a lot of our painful emotions, traumas, desires, projects are all clustered around this concept of one continuing I. I am here, and my project in life is to make this I happy. I fulfilled. Never works. And the Theravadins, the Shravakas, they say it doesn't work because you are chasing a phantom. It doesn't exist. How can you make yourself happy if that I which you are trying to make happy, this permanent I in those 5 skandhas, it doesn't exist. It's empty. It's a construct. It's an appearance. And the moment you dissolve that, the moment you see through to it and stay with it, all your negativities, all your selfish, limited projects will disappear. The difference between which I see myself and everybody else, that also disappears. The person is still there, but that I separate self, there's no such thing. To whom or what will cling anger, resentment, trauma, guilt, hatred, even the personal selfish love. I love you means I love you, nobody else. You are I, this is I, me, mine. That much. That I, me, mine will dissolve. And this is the benefit. Now I'm going at hyperspeed, so I'm just leaving a lot aside. I'm just moving very fast. Anybody trained in Theravada would say, you're doing an injustice. I know, I'm going to do injustice to all the schools, but I have to finish in time. So basically, I've got this idea. This is the idea of no self. This is emptiness in the Shravaka or Theravada idea, school, and how you understand it through dreams and what you do with it in meditation. First stage. Now comes the next, the mind-only school. One name is Chitta Matra. Chitta means mind, Matra means only, mind only, literally mind-only school. Here we must know we are making a transition from Theravada to Mahayana. The crucial difference here is, there are many differences in doctrine and teaching, but the crucial difference here is that the Mahayanas say that not that the Theravadas are wrong or the Shravakas are wrong. They are right. The idea of no self in the 5 aggregates, Panchaskandha, there is no self there. That's right. But that's not the end of the story. If you do that, you will get peace of mind. If you meditate like that, you will get peace of mind. You will get a sense of release. But that's not the end of the story, because you have not encompassed the whole of reality. You have just inquired into yourself. But what about the world? What about the universe? What is it? It's still out there. Why would you need to know about the world or the universe? So they say, the Mahayanists, the Mahayana school, they say that the goal is not just personal liberation. So according to them, in Theravada, what is the greatest, the final attainment that you can have? That you can be personally liberated. As long as you're alive, if you are enlightened, you will be free of all the kleshas, the painful, negative emotions. You will live an enlightened, peaceful life. and after the dissolution of the body, nirvana. Nirvana in the purest sense of being exhausted or wiped out or snuffed out, blown out. A candle, deepa nirvana. That's the thing. There's a lamp there. If you blow out the lamp, and the Buddha was asked, after nirvana, where will the enlightened one go? Where will you go? Where will you be? The Buddha said, there's a lamp. If you blow it out, the flame, has it gone to the east? No. Or the west? North or south? Up or down? These are not right questions to ask. Similarly, this limited existence, which was continuing lifetime after lifetime, has been blown out. What remains after that, if anything at all? They don't talk about. So this is arhat. Arhat means the one who has attained liberation, personal liberation. But the Mahayanists say that that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is Buddhahood, the full enlightenment. The goal is not just your own enlightenment. The goal is the enlightenment of all beings. And so the Mahayanists, which literally means the greater vehicle. So the term is used in comparison with the Theravada, which they call pejoratively Hinayana, smaller, lesser vehicle. So that's not a term one should use. Why greater vehicle? Because here the goal is the liberation of all sentient beings. Liberation from what? From suffering. Liberation from suffering for all sentient beings. Your vow is not just to be an arhat. You will go through that stage. But your vow is of the bodhisattva vow. That I shall win liberation for all sentient beings. I shall take across the ocean of suffering all sentient beings. And at the end of the path lies full Buddhahood. Not just like the Gautama Buddha. All of us can become that. In order to become that, where does emptiness come in? In order to become that, one needs a full view of reality. A comprehensive understanding of reality, not just the emptiness of one, this self. So what is this comprehensive understanding of reality? To put it very briefly, they say, look, you did not, the mind-only school says, you did not consider the external world. The external world, you left it as it is. But the external world is also empty. The Shravaka school, Theravada school said, these 5 skandhas, the 5 components of the personality, they are empty of self. But the external world, tables and chairs and quarks and quasars, they are also empty. There is no inner substance or essence to any of them. And then here again, the dream example applies very beautifully. In the dream example, when you are walking along in the park and you see a flower, the same example. The Theravadins told you that you don't exist as a person right there. It's an appearance in the dream. Even your personhood there is an appearance. But the flower is equally an appearance. The trees and the people you meet in the dream, they are also equally appearances. Of what? In what? In the dreaming mind. In the dreaming mind. Yeah, that's an appearance too in the dreaming mind. If you were well settled in emptiness, that shouldn't upset you, Swami. Both are appearances in the dreaming mind. The subject who experiences and the object which is experienced. You, the one who is seeing, and the flower which you are seeing, both are appearances. Where? In the dream. And that we all agree. After waking up, you will say that, oh, I was not walking in the park. That was not me, but it was experienced. And the flower was also not a real flower which I experienced in the waking state. It was also projected or it appeared in the dreaming mind. Both are empty of self-reality. They don't exist as a person who is seeing a flower and a flower which is seen. Both are appearances in the dreaming mind. And then the big move. Here it's very interesting to follow the moves these philosophers make. I'm going to take a high-speed tour of these, but these were developed over centuries, in fact more than 2 millennia of work, 1,000 years of work in India and 1,000 years of work in Tibet, with a lot of dialectics and debate, a lot of intense work, attacks and counterattacks, still they were refined. So the next big move that the mind-only school makes is, as in the dream, so in the waking. As in swapna, as in the dream, so in the waking. And in order to show that this waking world is also like that, this body, mind, this personality is an appearance, and that world which we are seeing is also an appearance. Appearance where? In what? In the mind. Just as a dream appearance is. Now, in order to do that, they have to do some philosophical heavy lifting. They have to show our natural tendency to think that waking and dreaming are separate. They have to erase the difference. So they claim, as far as you are concerned, from your own experience, what is called phenomenological experience, as subjectively you are experiencing, as we all are, from that perspective, there is no significant difference between waking and dreaming. We immediately protest. We say, no, that's not true. Why do you think there's a difference between waking and dreaming? Multiple objections, many of them. These are like centuries of debates which go on between the mind-only school and other Buddhists and other Hindu schools at that time. For example, just for our consideration, a few things. One might say, dreams and waking are very different. Dreams are vague and smoky and, they are not clear. But the waking experience is it's so vivid. Color, shape, sound, all of this is so vivid and clear. So the dreams are not clear, not vivid. Waking is clear and vivid. Waking, you have an industrial grade reality. It's solid, it's here. Now, the mind-only school philosophers or the masters will say that suppose the dreams were vivid. Suppose somebody comes and says, my dreams are very vivid. And on the other hand, because of old age, disability, maybe my senses are not working too well, I can't see all that well, or I can't hear all that well. So my waking experience is vague. It's all smoky, and I can't hear too well. But in my dreams, I hear very well and I can see very well. Now the dreams become more vivid, potentially, theoretically, not so difficult to imagine. Dreams become more vivid, and then the waking experience is less vivid. Will you now say that dreams have become waking and waking has become a dream? If you hold on to the criterion of vividness, then you have to be consistent. Now when the dreams have become more vivid, you have to say, that's my real waking state. We will never say that. So vividness, what the point is, the vividness, clarity of experience is not a criteria for distinguishing dream and waking. If it were, it would lead us to these absurd positions. Another one is similarly, continuity. And you can do the homework on this one. Somebody says that, look, my waking experience is continuous. I wake up in the same apartment, same bed every day. But every dream is different. Now, again, you can reverse that argument. You can say, suppose somebody was sick, maybe Alzheimer's or something, and the waking experience seemed to be disconnected, disjointed, disorienting. A sickness can do that. Illness can do that. And suppose you keep having the same dream over and over again, a continuity in the dream. Then will the dream, you will say, is it waking and now your waking has become a dream? You will never say that. So continuity cannot be a criterion for distinguishing between dream and waking. Another one is, look, dreams are private. It's in my mind. Waking is real. Look, we are all here and sharing a public reality, a shared reality. This one is also easily dismissed because in dreams also you have a shared public reality. When you don't know that you're dreaming, there are other people. You're walking, say, in the park. There are other people in the park, and you say, look, what a beautiful flower. And everybody else says, yeah, that's really beautiful. And it's a shared public reality. And when you wake up, you say, oh, that was all in my mind. But when you were there, it looked like a shared public reality. Everybody was having the same experience. Here also, everybody is having the same experience. Anyway, multiple examples like this. And if you have studied the Mandukya Karika, you will see the same ideas to such an extent that Gaudapada Acharya was accused of being a Buddhist, a Mahayana Buddhist. Because almost the same arguments are there. Swami Nikhilanandaji, in his introduction to the appendix to the Mandukya Karika translation, he gives 10 arguments to erase the difference between, actually 10 objections to equating dream and waking, and then he erases those, he deconstructs those objections. And you get a creepy feeling of maybe your dreams and waking are sort of melding into each other. So, now having accomplished this, the Chittamatra, the mind-only school says, look, they have a famous saying, Nilo tadhiyo abhedaha. Blue and the perception of blue are non-different. You cannot distinguish between them. You, the perceiver, the internal perception of a color and the color itself. We have this natural feeling, the color is out there. And my perception of the color is here, in my eyes, in my optic nerves, in my brain centers, I'm getting a perception. But literally, if you see your own experience, where is the difference? It all comes up as one in the experience. You cannot separate. And it says, just like the mind generates dreams, similarly, and the dreams are empty because they don't have a separate independent existence. It's the mind. Similarly, your waking experience is also generated by the mind and mind alone. You have no solid philosophical reason to postulate an externally existing world in addition to your experience. This is an argument. Something that was very, very similar to what was repeated by Bishop Berkeley about 700-800 years after these philosophers, the subjective idealists, So this is the mind-only school. What is emptiness? Emptiness of self, because it's like a dream self. Emptiness of the other, the perceived object, because it's like a dream object. Dreams are dreams. This is waking. No, but we have shown you that dreams are waking cannot be philosophically separated in principle. What is the benefit of this? The benefit of this is very great. When we sit and meditate, same thing. Sit calmly, take refuge in the Buddha and the Sangha and the Dhamma, arouse the bodhicitta. So here the bodhicitta has been defined very clearly. The bodhicitta is, the awakened mind or enlightenment mind, that's what they call it. It's a very important concept in Mahayana Buddhism especially. That it's a combination of compassion and wisdom. If you want to liberate yourself and all sentient beings, why would that feeling come? It comes out of compassion, karuna. Compassion for the suffering of all beings. Why the suffering of all beings? Once you see the selfless, the non-selfness of this person, then there is no difference between you and the other. So one of the great Mahayana teachers in Bodhicharya Avatara, Shantideva, he says, suffering should be removed. The suffering of the other should be removed because it is like your own suffering in the sense that it is suffering. But you might argue, no, but it's my suffering, I'll remove my suffering. But that I, me, mine has already been dissolved and shown to be empty. Therefore, suffering should be removed. As you're removing hunger, thirst, pain here, you should remove hunger, thirst, pain there also. Compassion, that is the motivation. But compassion itself is not enough. In order to actually help others, we need wisdom. We need knowledge. So this combination of karuna and prajna, this compassion and knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of the emptiness, the Śūnyatā, emptiness nature of not only yourself, of everything else. Now, as you sit in meditation, you meditate upon the emptiness of the self and the emptiness of the other, the object. Emptiness of the subject, emptiness of the object. Both are appearing in mind. As a result, the world outside can no longer tempt you nor terrify you. There is no substance to it. It is none other than you yourself, the mind which is appearing as the seer and the seen, both together. One might ask, all right, then what is this mind? Here comes the idea of the three levels of reality according to them, according to the mind-only school. Reality as we experience it has three levels. There are three names for it. One is called parikalpita, imaginary. Second one, a higher level of reality, paratantra, dependent, causes and conditions. Paratantra, dependent on the other. And finally, parinishpanna, real, really existing, ultimate truth. So parikalpita, imaginary, is our usual world of I'm a person, you're other persons, here are nice things, I'm in competition with you to get those nice things, here are terrible things, I'm terrified of it, I'm trying to avoid those things. Our samsara, it's just this is like a dream, it's parikalpita, imaginary. But where is it imaginary? In the mind. Now the question might arise, but why are these things arising in the mind? This is the second level of reality because of causes and conditions. There are reasons because of past impressions of many lifetimes which give rise to these experiences. the objects which we see, and we, the experiencer of those objects. They come up and disappear. This is called paratantra. This arising, that arises. This not arising, that will not arise. Causes and conditions. Also known as pratitya samutpada, dependent origination. But even that is empty. What is really there is mind only. Now we may ask, what is the nature of this mind only? Chitta matra. Chitta means mind in Sanskrit. Mind only. And they say mind only is instants of cognition, flashes of cognition. And it's not difficult to understand. Right now, if we see, we are having experiences. You see form and color and shape. We hear sounds. We feel warm or cold. We have sensations in the body, pleasant and unpleasant. These are all experiences, and according to them, these are only flashes of cognition, just mind. I, the experiencer of this table, the table itself, both are arising together in the mind as a flash of experience. Just hold on to that. Flash of experience. This flash of experience or flash of cognition, one instant, succeeded by another at terrific speed. But all discrete flashes of experiences arising and falling, these are called vijnana. Vijnana. Kshanika vijnana, momentary flashes of cognition. So what's the ultimate truth of all of this? Momentary flashes of cognition. This is what they understand by mind only. This is where it stops. And this meditation frees you from clinging to the self or clinging to the other also, because it's all empty. Now comes the third and the fourth. I'm going to deal with them together. Madhyamaka. The Madhyamaka school. The Madhyamaka school has these two varieties or two flavors, if you will. The Swatantrika and Prasangika. But let's go slowly. This Madhyamaka school, Madhyamaka literally means middle path. Those who follow Madhyamaka are called Madhyamikas. I remember when I first discussed this with a very great Swami, Ram Maharaj, Swami Mokshadanandaji. He told me in detail about what it means, what is emptiness, what is its relationship to Advaita Vedanta, so on. Very great teacher in Belur Math. And I kept saying Madhyamika, Madhyamika, and I still remember, he corrected me. Madhyamaka. The philosophy is called Madhyamaka. And if you follow it, you are a Madhyamika. Now, these Madhyamikas, they originate with one of the greatest names in Indian philosophy, Nagarjuna, who has fascinated, and 2000 years later, more and more is being written on Nagarjuna now, here in the West, in English. And they're relating it to a lot of modern thought. I will not go there. Gayatri is here. Yes, there are actually books on Nagarjuna and deconstruction and Derrida and also. So fascinating, at least echoes and parallels between somebody who lived 2000 years ago in India. And Nagarjuna wrote this masterpiece, Moola Madhyamaka Karika. Moola Madhyamaka Karika, I think 28 chapters. Fascinating. 28 chapters where he shows the emptiness of everything. So what is the purpose of this Madhyamaka school? They say that the Chitta Matra, mind-only school, is right so far as they say the self is empty and the other is also empty. But they are wrong when they say the ultimate truth is mind. Mind is also empty. Then what's true? We won't tell you. But whatever you say, mind, God, Atman, Brahman, the Buddha nature, everything is empty. And we will prove it to you. They are hyper-logicians. They always wield the sword of logic. So the Moola Madhyamaka Karika is a very intriguing text. There, he takes up everything and anything you can think about. The Four Noble Truths, life and death, past lives and future lives, this causes and effects, cause and effect, causality. The Buddha, empty. Four Noble Truths are empty, shunya. Buddha is shunya. What about nirvana? What about samsara? Shunya. Oh, that's good. Nirvana, shunya. What about all philosophies? Drishti, they call it drishti. Śūnyatā sarva drishtīnām. All philosophies are empty. All philosophies are empty. What does it mean? We'll go into that. Their goal is Śūnyatā sarva dharmanām. All entities, whatever you can think about, whatever you can postulate is empty, has no essence at all. And they will demonstrate it with logic. And an initial objection could be, just a minute, Mr. Nagarjuna. What about your philosophy? Your Madhyamaka, all is emptiness. That's a philosophy also. So that's also empty. And he gives a beautiful answer to that. There is a text called Vigraha Vyavartini, refutation of other views. He says, if I had a view, then I could be accused of propounding an empty philosophy. But I have no view. If I have said something, you could refute it. But I am not saying anything. So this goes back to, in ancient India, debates were of three categories. Vada, Jalpa, Vitanda. Vada means Tattva Bhubutsukatha. A debate, a discussion based on an inquiry into the truth. So a teacher and a student, or two genuine inquirers of truth, they might. Then there's another kind of debate called Jalpa, which is Parapaksha Dushanam Swapaksha Sthapanam. Cutting down the opponent's view and establishing your view. Like a lawyer might do. It's not a question about what is truth, but I want to establish my view. And I want to cut down your view. That's the goal. That becomes the goal. In the court of law and in every quarrel that you have ever had. I am right and I must have the last word and you are wrong and I'm going to prove that. No matter what the topic is. So that is Jalpa. There is a third kind of debate, Vitanda, which says that I have nothing to establish, but whatever you try to establish, I'll cut it down. Now that sounds awful, but it isn't. It's actually a very sophisticated form of debate. What these Madhyamakas want to state is that the truth, whatever it is, we will not say it also, it is self-evident. We just want to sweep aside all the clutter of concepts and philosophies. It cannot be grasped. Any philosophical approach is bound to be wrong. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Shobai mone kore nijer ghodi thik cholche. Everybody thinks as his own watch is running right. And the person who wears two watches never knows the time. That was long before modern watches which are connected to the internet, which will give you the exact time because they are connected to the web. But then otherwise, so no philosophy can give you the truth. No amount of concepts will give, conceptual proliferation. They call it prapancha. Conceptual proliferation. That has to be swept aside. And that's what Nagarjuna wants to do. How does he do that? I'll indulge myself a little bit, though I'm running out of time. But I want to give you a taste of what fascinated me. When I opened that book, Moola Madhyamaka Karika, one of the early chapters is chapter on walking. Something as simple. Forget nirvana, enlightenment, self, not self, God, Brahman, Atman, forget all that. Something as simple as walking, taking a step. He said, that's also empty. You can't make sense of it. Why? So in walking, there is the walker, there is the act of walking, and the space which is being traversed, the ground which is being walked upon, right? That's very common sense. And then the Nyaya school, which is a realist school, they would say, if you are a walker, if you are walking, you are the one who is walking, the action of walking is in you. You are the doer, you are the agent of that action, and the action is, where is this action? This action is in you. You are walking. Common sense, sort of. Nagarjuna says, who is walking? There are only two possibilities. The walker is walking or the non-walker is walking. The non-walker obviously not walking by definition because they've defined he's not walking. So yeah, we'll say, of course, the walker is walking. But the walker is the one who has already got, by definition, the action of walking in him. So if he is walking, dvirgamanam syat, then he is walking twice. You seem puzzled, but it's a very simple move. It says, who is walking? Walker or non-walker? The non-walker cannot walk because the person who's not walking is a non-walker. So we'll leave him out. The person who's walking is walking. We say that one who's walking is walking. But how do you define a person who's walking? The person who's walking is that person who has got the action of walking. Now, if you attribute walking to the walker, there'll be two actions of walking there. You see? So is he walking twice? What is he walking on? Is he walking on the space that has been already walked on? Or is he walking on the space that has to be walked on? Or is he walking on the space which is being walked on? We will say, of course, he's not walking on the space which has been walked on. That's done. He's already covered it. and the space to be covered, he has not yet gone there. So I guess common sense is the place where he is walking, that place, he is walking on that now. But the place being walked upon, if he walks on that, is he walking twice on that? So if you see what he is doing, you might say these are verbal quibbles. But these were very serious issues for Nyaya philosophers. They were ultra-realists. They took everything very seriously. So if you are real, your actions are real, the place you're doing action is real, so they have to be in some relationship, and yet I cannot verbally describe that relationship. And he uses the same techniques on Buddha, on Four Noble Truths, on Nirvana, on Samsara. He says none of these concepts make sense. They're all empty. And yet they all work. Here he brings in his two truths, two levels of truth. He says the Buddha has taught two levels of teachings. Samritti Satyam, Paramarthika Satyam. Dve Satye. Two truths have been taught. In the ultimate sense, the absolute truth, everything is empty. Śūnyatā sarva dharmanam. And I will show that to you logically. But in the conventional sense, in the relative sense, in Vedanta what we call Vyavaharika. Yes, Vyavaharika Satyam. Everything exists. There are people are walking. You can happily walk. Don't be afraid of stepping out, walking around. All of it will work, except that it doesn't make any sense when you examine it logically. So, the two levels of truth. And then Nagarjuna adds there, Samvrittim manashritya paramartham nadigamyate. Without taking refuge in the conventional truth, in the relative truth, nobody attains to that ultimate truth. The importance of this, don't dismiss it as saying, it's all a dream, it's all false, nothing works here, or this is all illogical, it's non-existent. Then you will never attain enlightenment. Because the Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha, even concept of Śūnyatā, everything is at the relative level. You have to take the help of this relative truth, of scripture and teacher and meditation and ethics, all of that, even though logically you cannot establish them, in order to reach that enlightenment which Buddha is pointing at. So this is Nagarjuna's view. Just a little note on the Swatantrika and Prasangika, not relevant really to us directly, it's a very subtle point. Nagarjuna had a disciple called Buddha Palita, and he wrote a commentary on Nagarjuna's Moola Madhyamaka Karika, that text, explaining it. Thank God, because this is very subtle, it's very difficult to understand. See, the language is very simple. If you read the Moola Madhyamaka Karika, even now, new translations are coming out. J. Garfield has a wonderful translation. Mark Sideritz has another new translation. Excellent translations. And also, the Sun of Wisdom by a great Tibetan Lama teacher who has shown these very subtle abstract arguments, how they can be applied in our day-to-day life and free us from suffering. Anyway, so Buddha Palita wrote a commentary explaining all this stuff. Then it was attacked by another master, Bhava Viveka. He wrote his sort of counter commentary on Moola Madhyamaka Karika, and his interpretation is called Swatantrika Madhyamaka. I'll explain the difference. He was again refuted by one of the greatest Madhyamaka philosophers and masters, Chandrakirti. So Chandrakirti, not so much famous in the Indian tradition, his name is important, but really became important in Tibet a few hundred years afterwards. He was part of the Nalanda tradition, and then his works became very important in Tibet. And even now, some of the works translated in English is what we were asked to read, plow through hundreds and hundreds of pages of abstract arguments like what I just told you, but spread over 300, 400 pages. I remember falling asleep over them in the Widener library. So, the interpretation of Bhava Viveka is called Swatantrika Madhyamaka, and the refutation and new interpretation given by Chandrakirti, which claims to be faithful to Nagarjuna, is called Prasangika. What's the difference? Very simply, one point and then I'll move on. The difference is this. Both try to refute all other philosophies. Point being that then emptiness will become clear, obvious. It will not have to be stated. But what Bhava Viveka tries to do, the Swatantrika tries to do is refute, give logical arguments, refute all other philosophies, Buddhist and Hindu and all of that, and then give independent arguments to establish emptiness. This is the Svatantrika view. The Prasangika view, which is the prevailing view, which is the philosophy, is important because it's the philosophy of the Dalai Lama and all his followers, especially the Gelugpa sect, which Dalai Lama heads. All of them, they will. If you ask them precisely, if you ask them, what is your philosophy? They'll say, we are Tibetan Buddhists. But specifically, they'll say, we are Madhyamakas. More specifically, we are Prasangika Madhyamakas. They are very particular on that point. Their point is, if you try to establish emptiness independently with arguments, you are again proliferating concepts, which was the whole point, to sweep aside all conceptual fabrication and to make emptiness an intuitively evident truth. Nagarjuna said, Śūnyatā, emptiness is the antidote to all the poisons of samsara. But he who takes Śūnyatā itself as a philosophy, there is no saving him. He says, Yatha sarpo durgrihita. If you catch a snake by the wrong end, you are not an expert snake catcher. You catch it by the wrong end, you are in serious trouble. The person who thinks Śūnyatā is the truth, I have got it, is finished. Nothing can save him. Because Śūnyatā can save you if you are in samsara and troubled by samsara, it will liberate you. It will give you nirvana. But if you catch on to Śūnyatā and hold it on, that's what the Prasangikas tell the Svatantrikas. That Svatantrika literally means independent argument. Prasangika means what is called a reductio argument. That means, I will prove, whatever you say, I will prove it's absurd. Hopefully you will let go of that concept. Then I will not give you any new concept until you see for yourself the empty nature of all views and the evident nature of reality. I will not say that. Just the empty nature of all views. So this is the difference between the two. And why I'm not going further into it is because it's a technical difference, not really very relevant to us, but in fact, the whole course which J. Garfield taught us, 600-700 years of argumentation on the icy plateau of Tibet by these lamas sitting in the monastery, I think they didn't have much more to do to keep talking about emptiness. It was a debate about Svatantrika and Prasangika. It's a very serious issue for them. So, now the dream example. How do the Madhyamakas handle the dream example? They say, look at the person in the dream and the objects in the dream, they are both empty. Which has the mind-only school will say, yeah, that's what we said. So you're an extra clever dude. What new thing do you have to say? Now the Madhyamaka asks, the Prasangika Madhyamaka asks the mind-only school. So they are all appearing in what? So what's real, according to you? The mind is real. Like the mind in the dream produces the dreaming person and the things they see in the dream, the mind is real. What is the mind? The mind is a series of instantaneous flashes of cognition. Then Nagarjuna and the Madhyamakas, they will deploy their famous logic. So one way, many ways, but one particular sword they use is single or multiple. So any entity, anything, to exist, it has to be either single or with parts. Single means one entity or something with multiple parts. Then it can exist. These are exclusive and exhaustive. There's no other third alternative. So, for example, if you say fist, there's an example they use. But fist, is it a single entity? Maybe. But now? No. It's comprised of many parts coming together. So fist is not a single entity, it has parts. So it exists. Then where is the original fist? It's gone. It's dissolved into parts. Well, those parts exist, but you analyze them, they all have tissues and the fingers, they're separate fingers. Each of the fingers has tissues and cells, and if you analyze further, it'll go down to atoms. Finally, you will say that at least the atoms, the tiniest possible particles exist, and in ancient India, they had this idea of atoms. Kanada, the Vaisheshika philosopher, was one of the earliest to speak about the tiniest possible particle out of which all material reality is created. Nagarjuna says, really, do atoms exist? It need not be atoms. Today we might say protons, neutrons, quarks, or whatever. So the tiniest particle, does it exist? Yes, that's how this universe is built up. So the tiniest particle is single or multiple? If it is single, it has no parts. It's single, it has no parts. Yeah, that's how we define the tiniest particle, no parts. If it has no parts, it has no top, bottom, because top, bottom, sides are parts. If it has no top, bottoms, left side, right side, then there is no way for the next particle to connect with it. Then how will material universe be built up? We came across this thought as little kids when we were introduced to the concept of, in Euclidean geometry, of a point and a line. Point is no breadth, no extension, nothing like that. And yet so many points come together to make a line with extension, length. Similarly, Nagarjuna asks, if, on all the Madhyamakas, this simple argument. Tiniest particle without any dimensions cannot build up a material universe. Well, if you say it has dimensions, up, down, side, left, and on, and then it can connect to other particles, then it has parts. It's not the tiniest particle. Then the parts of those particles, do they have parts or are they single? You see? What does this have to do with mind only? We are coming to you now. Get ready for the sword. You say all our experiences boil down to instantaneous flashes of cognition. Now you can see where this is going. This instantaneous flash of cognition, kshanika vijnana, does it have duration or not? Is it single or with parts? If it is single of no duration at all, then it cannot be experience. Experience has a beginning and a middle and an end, no matter how fleeting. The mind-only school says, it's an experience. So it's a beginning and an end and a middle. The beginning and an end and the middle, then it's not one single flash. It has a duration of a beginning, 1 moment, middle, at least 1 moment, and end, at least 1 moment. So 3 moments. It's no longer one single flash of cognition. And then each of those moments, does it have a beginning and middle or an end? So the whole idea of a mind which is generating this reality, that also drops away. It's empty. The Madhyamaka says you are not wrong, but even this mind you are talking about, the mind-only school, that's also a relative truth. It's also empty. All right, smart guy, tell us what the ultimate truth is. If I tell you, it will be a concept. The ultimate truth, the ultimate nature of things, he says, it's not that whatever you take up, mind, Atma, Brahman, God, world, Buddha, it's not that it exists. Oh, so it doesn't exist. You're a nihilist. It's not that it does not exist. It's not that it both exists and does not exist. It's not that it neither exists nor does not exist. 4 alternatives. Chatushkoti. 4 alternatives. Śūnyam, Nagarjuna defines. Śūnyam is Chatushkoti vinirmukta tattvam. Emptiness is that which escapes the 4 alternatives. What is the nature of everything? The world, you, self, God, whatever it is. Not existence, not non-existence, not a combination of existence and non-existence, and neither a denial of both. And he will demonstrate. Whatever candidate you gave, Atman, Brahman, world, consciousness, anything, he will show that it will fall in these 4 categories, and he denies it. And he'll give you logic, reason to do that. How do you practice this? So in the dream example, what would you do? In the dream example for the Madhyamakas, you notice the emptiness of the person in the dream, emptiness of the object in the dream, both are appearances, as the mind-only school said, and the emptiness of the mind which is dreaming. What do you mean emptiness of the mind which is? This has to be understood carefully. Because we say that, right, I understand whatever happened in the dream and whoever was in the dream, both are appearances and they are not real. But I am the dreamer, I am the dreaming mind, I dreamt it. I exist apart from the dream also. But the Madhyamaka says, do you? Have you any experience of the dreaming mind minus the dream? So yeah, but I'm here in waking. But have you any experience of the waking mind minus the waking? Oh, deep sleep. I am there, but it's in deep sleep. Have you any experience of the deep sleep mind without the deep sleep? Here is the great insight of Madhyamaka. They arise and fall together. Anything that arises and falls together cannot be ultimately real. They are dependent on each other. Chandrakirti gives an example which you will never find in any Hindu text of 2 sheaves or bales of hay leaning against each other. If you remove one bale of hay, what will happen to the other one? It will fall. Your so-called, for example, you Vedantins or Sankhyans will say you are consciousness experiencing a world. But without the experienced world, is there any consciousness? Without the consciousness, is there any experienced world? They are like two sheaves or bales of hay leaning on each other. Remove one, the other falls also. Both are empty. And you leave it at that. The meditation will be, you sit, this is a dream example. Meditation will be, you will sit in meditation and experience a vast emptiness, and that the dissolution of all problems goes away there. In that emptiness, what appears? Samsara appears if you are unenlightened. In the emptiness itself, samsara appears with fully empty nature, shunya nature. If you are enlightened, in that same emptiness, nirvana will appear. You will appear as a Buddha, you will appear as, the world will appear to you as, having its essential Buddha nature. Everything will be peaceful, enlightened, sublime. Same experience, same reality. In two ways, enlightenment, non-enlightenment, both are empty. Samsara is empty, nirvana is empty. And that emptiness is, don't even say the emptiness is the final truth, then you're catching the snake by the... Okay, so this is the Madhyamaka view. If you stop here, Sri Ramakrishna's, where we started, Sri Ramakrishna's teaching, if you examine the self, if you examine things very carefully, you will find kono sharni, no essence at all. Basically, that's what was going on till now. No essence at all. But then there's one more little thing which Sri Ramakrishna adds. Ja ache tai thake. Chaitanya. What remains, what is, remains. Consciousness, pure consciousness. Now comes the last part. I've gone well over time, but I must complete this. Are you with me? Are you still? Or have you become empty? So, the last part of this is the so-called Shentong school. Here we enter an area of controversy. Because if you ask Tibetan Buddhists, they say that they stop with prasangika madhyamaka, emptiness. Emptiness of self, emptiness of the other, emptiness of mind also. All are the Śūnyatā sarvadharmanam, and stop. But the Shentong school is another school who are also known as Maha Madhyamaka, the great Madhyamaka. They also call themselves Yogachara Madhyamaka, mind-only school combined, synthesis of mind-only school and Madhyamaka school, the middle path school. What they say is they turn the tables on the Madhyamakas. You have to be more logical than these hyper-logicians. Have you seen, some of you must have seen the Tibetan Buddhists debating and all, the way they have their gestures and gesticulations and movements. So those are, mostly they are Gelug monks. They are these prasangika madhyamakas. You say something, he'll cut you down. And they have an elaborate, almost dance-like movement to demonstrate this. Professor Arindam Chakravarti was here. He demonstrated some of those moves to us upstairs in the dining hall. What the Shentong school says, you, the Madhyamakas, say in this vast emptiness, samsara arises and nirvana arises. But why? If it is only empty, why would just bare emptiness appear as anything at all? There should be nothing. There should be nothing. And yet, there's always the quality of awareness, knowingness. In samsara, when you are suffering, as a Buddha, when you are fully enlightened, every time it's an experience. There's a phenomenological feel to it. There is a light which illumines everything. You cannot deny that. If you deny that, O Madhyamakas, you will end up as nihilists, as nothing. And that Nagarjuna himself refutes. He says, those who call us nihilists, they do us an injustice. We are not saying that nothing exists. So you say that something exists, no? The Shentong Buddhists, the Shentong, technical term is Shentongpa. Shentongpa means the person who practices or holds on to Shentong view. They say, the Shentong view says that this emptiness, the Madhyamakas are right, the Prasangika Madhyamakas are right, but this emptiness is luminous. They call it the clear light of the void. What is this clear light of the void? It is pure consciousness, pure awareness. Now I can see some of you going, aha, now we come to the point. It sounds like Advaita, yet it does, very much so. In fact, one of the great masters, I was researching it on the net, of great Tibetan master's contemporary. It says, he reluctantly admitted there is no difference between the Shentong view and Advaita Vedanta. The final view of emptiness, the fifth view, and Advaitic view, he says there is no difference, reluctantly admitted. Then this samsara appearance, it is empty. Nirvana appearance, it is empty. But why this experience is going on at all? This emptiness must have a luminosity to it. We call it the clear light of the void. And then immediately the Madhyamaka will say, but if you say there's a clear light of the void, whatever it is, I will cut it down. You will be victim of the Madhyamaka logic. The sword is waiting for you. Then here comes the beauty of the Shentong move. This Shentong move says, you are using the sword to remove all concepts, right? Yes, nishprapancha. Prapancha means proliferation of concepts. I'm removing all concepts. This removing all concepts with the sword of logic is also a concept. After removing all concepts, when enlightenment arises, because it did arise for the Buddha, when you realize the clear light of the void, there's a subtle, very subtle concept in the mind of the Madhyamaka meditator, which says, this too has to be cut down. But it cannot be cut down. It is irreducible. It is not an object of any conception. The Madhyamaka will say, you are just importing the mind-only school in a new name. It's again, you're saying mind is appearing. But that mind and this pure consciousness are not the same thing. In that mind is an appearance of an experiencer and an experience, subject and object. Those experiences have beginnings and ends. They are limited in time. They're limited by the nature of that experience, content of that experience. They're entirely objective. But this is not an object, what we are talking about. Language cannot objectify. That's why there's great difficulty in trying to talk about it. Then the Madhyamaka will not let you go, Prasangika. He will say, then why talk about it? Why teach it? Then a very beautiful answer is given by the Shentong. 5 reasons. 1, there are those who feel so self-deprecating that I cannot be that limitless awareness. They will not even start on the spiritual path until this teaching is given. You do not sorrow, do not be afraid. You have the Buddha nature. You have the Tathagata Garbha. You have the ultimate nature in you. This teaching has to be given in words. 2nd, there are those who are very proud. Spiritual pride. That also is poisonous. This Tathagata Garbha, this Buddha nature, this clear light of the void is for everybody. Enlightened, unenlightened. You have no special reason to be proud about it. I remember this monk in our monastery once. Brilliant person. But a little troubled, I think, because he said, I'm going to write a book about this person who's enlightened. And he's enlightened, he behaves like an ordinary, in fact, even a foolish person outside. Internally, he's enlightened and he's full of contempt for all others. I said, that doesn't sound very enlightened. So, to cut down spiritual pride that I am something special, immediately what is called reification. You have reified a personality who is special, enlightened. No. That's why this teaching must be given. 3rd, to prevent this mistake which you Madhyamakas make of trying to prove the emptiness of that ultimate reality also. That teaching must be given. And then the 4th is, I think, to inspire all beings that, this feeling that all beings have, we are small. The exact words are, we are stained, we are sinful, we are limited. To remove this feeling that you have all these problems, but really, underneath, beyond all this, you have the Buddha nature. You have the nature of the clear light of the void, in which entire samsara manifests, entire nirvana manifests. You are that reality. This teaching has to be given. And finally, very beautiful, he says that every being shares that Buddha nature. To know that, you feel that kinship, oneness with everybody, to begin with, not at the end of enlightenment. Right now, all of us are that one clear light of the void. And then you can have compassion and service for others. When I read that, immediately, Shiva Jnana Jiva Seva, I was thinking, Sri Ramakrishna's teaching. So this is the clear light of the void, which the Shentong interpretation. Now, the Shentong interpretation is not well known. because it was practiced by a group of monks in a monastery called Jonang. That monastery was later occupied centuries ago, and the books were destroyed, and all the monks there were converted to the Prasangika Gelug school. So it was sort of suppressed. But it is there, even in the other schools of Tibetan Buddhism, it's there not as a philosophy which is taught, but part of their meditation practice, part of their tantra practice. See, here, I'll just add, the Prasangika Madhyamakas are not the villain of the piece, because they have a point. If you state these things, I'm not saying you're wrong, they're saying to the Shentong school, but if you state these things, these will immediately become concepts which are wrong, which are empty. So, philosophy will go up to Prasangika Madhyamaka, clear all concepts, the rest is up to meditation. By meditation, you will have an intuitive realization. The Shentong school says, what is that intuitive realization? We should state it also. We should tell it, in spite of your logic chopping. Dream example, I'll give that, and meditation, and stop. The dream example in the Shentong school is very close to the mind-only school, but you'll see the difference. In the mind-only school, you see that whatever you are seeing in the world is like a dream, and the person who is seeing is also a manifestation, and the underlying truth is mind. And in the meditation that you do in the mind-only school, the focus is not on the mind. The focus is on the emptiness of the object and emptiness of the self. And both are non-dual because they are appearances of the same mind. In the Shentong school meditation, what they do is, and the dream example, notice the person who is experiencing and what they experience are manifestations of the mind. Similarly, just as, this is the beautiful example they gave in dream example, Shentong school, just as the same mind can manifest good dreams and nightmares, being the same mind. Both the good dreams and the nightmares are empty because they are dreams. But the mind which is manifesting them is real. Similarly, the clear light of the void, which is your real nature, manifests samsara and nirvana. When you do not know that you are the clear light of the void, this world will appear to you as samsara. When you know you are enlightened, this world itself will appear to you as nirvana. That is the dream example for the Shentong school. And then meditation is very powerful. The meditation is, don't do anything. Sit quietly. And whatever arises, let it arise. Because all of it is a manifestation of the clear light of the void. It's right there. Every moment of experience, dissolve it and see the clear light of the void there. Just let it be. No technique is necessary. No effort is necessary. You just keep seeing the clear light of the void in every experience, moment to moment. Again reminded me of Kena Upanishad. Pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam hivindate. In every flash of experience, if you realize that pure consciousness, you will attain immortality. Almost like a mirror image. So these are the 5 stages of emptiness and meditation on emptiness. Very quickly, less than 1 minute, summing up all the 5 stages. The first we started long way back. You were thinking, oh, what was that? Well, our descent into nothingness is the Shravaka school, the Theravada school, which said the 5 skandhas. There is no self here. If you examine the I, you will not find here. Stage 1 up. And then there's meditation associated with that. In dream example also you see, the person in the dream is not a real person. Second, the mind-only school. Not only the person is without self, the object which you are seeing, the world, that is also without self. That's shunya. Person is shunya, and the subject is shunya, and the object is also shunya. That is emptiness. But mind is real. Third, the Madhyamaka school, both Prasangika and Swatantrika, they say mind is also not real. Mind is also shunya. And they use logic to prove that any concept is empty. And whatever is, we will not talk about it. Shentong school comes, the 5th one, they say we will talk about it. Because otherwise what you are saying does not make sense. If you say what we are talking about is another concept, will cut you down. No, that's your concept. That everything has to be cut down by logic. No. And that's also something that they say, because of long practice of dispelling illusion, cutting through illusion, when enlightenment arises, there is a tendency that let me try to cut this down also. But if you cut it down, it's the same clear light of the void in which you are cutting down whatever you think you are cutting down. So Shentong school ends up with emptiness is the clear light of the void. The luminosity of emptiness, or whatever, the multiple terms they use, sounds a lot like Chaitanya, Chit, Samvit, Satchidananda, like that. So this is our journey into Shunyam. As you can see, it is not nothingness. It is far more than it. Is it the all? Is it the Purnam? Is it the complete? We will see next time. Let me do a peace chant and then I have an announcement. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.